Hello, St. Peter's. A very happy Tuesday, a very beautiful Tuesday to all of you, loving the warm weather. And just wanted to come to you again for yet another short episode of Living the Faith, which is where we take the scripture that we looked at on Sunday and we try to figure out, so what does that mean for how I live my everyday life? Because that's the point, right? To follow Christ in our everyday. And we talked about a really important passage on Sunday, Acts 5. It's actually going to lead us directly into this week's passage as we see the consequences of our choices really working out. But the fundamental idea was, in the face of pressure, what is our most fundamental choice? So the early church is being persecuted. They're being asked not to talk about Jesus. If they continue to talk about Jesus, there's going to be trouble. And they say these very important words: we must obey God rather than human beings, right? Rather than people. That when given a choice, and an absolute choice, either kind of stop talking about Jesus, blend into the rest of culture, or do what Jesus told us to do, they make a very clear choice to say we must obey Jesus. And as you know, it's going to lead almost all of them to the cross or to some sort of very painful death. But they do. And they have this beautiful line at the end where they say they rejoiced that they would be able to share in the sufferings of Jesus. And I hope you've been thinking about that question. I know it's kind of an intense question, but it's also a really fundamental one for us as Christians. Most of us, if we're really honest, try to kind of mix cultural values and Christian values. And, we try to live them both as best we can. And, I'm not saying it has to be that no cultural values can ever have a place in our lives. Of course they can. That's where we grew up. It's our families. But where there's a choice, where there is a moment where it's like, well, God says this, and culture says this, which way are we going to go, right? What's kind of that master value? And I love, this is a choice we see all throughout Scripture. We talked about it. It's the very first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. I love the passage in Joshua where he says, why do you keep limping along these between two ways? Like, why do you keep doing that? He's like, if God is God, if the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. And that's the choice. I just hope you're thinking about this week. We're going to talk about it some tonight at community night through a different passage in Ephesians, but where it calls us to live in an entirely new way because of what Christ has done. But this idea of wholehearted devotion, I am all in with Jesus, is really important. So just think this week, talk about it with your families, try to figure out what are the powerful master values that I have in my life. It's probably more than one. We want to get it towards just Jesus, but what are they? Most people I know, the ones that get in there have to do with comfort, have to do with, living up to certain expectations set by family, set by peers or friends, have to do with non-suffering or having enough money. I mean, these are things that are really common. Jesus says you cannot serve two masters. You can't serve God and money, because I think those are still two of the biggest contenders. So take some time this week. Really, I encourage you, talk about it with your family, talk about it with your friends. Try to figure out what are the values that I have that are very strong, and are those Christian values, scriptural values, or not? And then maybe we can talk about it more tonight. I hope to see you tonight, Tuesday, 6 p.m., community night, and have a great week. I am praying for you, St. Peter's, this week.